Guard man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time has come, this is a cricketing emergency. Hear this call to arms for every cricket revolutionary. Take up your bats and stumps for the test match insurgency. At first they tried to silence us, but we would not be silenced. They threatened us with lies, so we threatened them with violence. Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket. It's not about the winning, it's about how many rules you break. Even in cricket commentary, this is the best advice to take. Pick guerrilla cricket, it's the finest choice you'll ever make. There's so much more to cricket than rev counters and a slice of cake. At first they tried to sanitize us and clean up our act, but people like it filthy, and we know that for a fact. Fidel Castro, Lenny Pascoe, Carlos the Jackal, Umar Akmal, Mahatma Gandhi, Grant and Andy, Brendan Behan, Austin Ian, guerrilla cricket. Stick with us, cause you know we're not the kind of thing that you see on the TV and the radio. So vive la revolution. First they tried to buy us, but we would not be bought. Okay, we were, but then we ran away, and we will not be caught. Would not give up the ghost when they left us all for dead. They decapitated us, but we just grew another head. Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket.
England fiddle while Rory Burns. The brown caps skipper held off the black caps attack for a fantastic third Test 100, but another Southey six-foot and the latest chapter of the Jameson revelation left him short of support. Anderson and Broad softened up Conway and Kane for Oliver, Edward, cautionary tale Robinson. But has the rain ruined any chance of a positive result? Let's find out, shall we? Hello and welcome to Guerrilla Cricket's coverage of Day 5 of the first Test between England and New Zealand at Lords. We resume with New Zealand 62 for 2, leading by 165. Tom Latham is on 30. Neil Wagner, the night watchman, is on 2 after fantastic spell yesterday from Broad and Anderson wicketless before Ollie Robinson removed Devon Conway bowled off the inside edge, and Kane Williamson LBW just on review, but it was Rory Burns and Tim Southey who dominated day 4. I am Knuckle M. Pandey, and I'll be taking you through the next half an hour or so, and I'm joined this morning by Tony Bishop.
Hello, good morning everyone. Hello Knuckle.
And Anindo Dutta.
Good morning, Knuckle. Good morning, Tony. Hello, everyone.
It was a curious, wasn't it? It was a good day of Test cricket yesterday, with a couple of standout performers in a game that has not been easy for batters. Rory Burns rose above.
He did. He had his luck. Well, no. Let's take the positives first. He was magnificent. It was an interesting innings because he really ground it out. It was kind of slow, and then once the wickets had fallen, he got some brilliant company from Ollie Robinson and Jimmy Anderson, and towards the end, I mean, he powered 1-6, his first ever Test 6 over the mid wicket, and he was like a different player. So it was a standout performance in what was, I won't say expected, but feared England collapse. You look at the lack of perhaps test experience, and Lords will often throw up not straightforward conditions, but I mean Lawrence and Bracey, that's not a great advert for their CVs in either case. He had his luck, yes he did Rory Burns. That the dropped edge, the mis-stumping could have made this quite a different game today if those had been taken, but he didn't, and he was superb.
That partnership with Ollie Robinson, he only put on 16 of the 63, but then scored 41 of 35 balls batting with James Anderson. Yeah, that slog sweeping Neil Wagner for 6 shows that shows his range. And Anindya, a word on Tim Southey, who's taking his last 90 odd wickets at not that far over 20 in recent years. A truly fantastic swing bowler.
Oh, absolutely, and these are tailor-made conditions for the Kiwi attack. So England's getting a taste of their own medicine, if you like, from a bowling perspective, and the inexperienced batting is showing up their chinks in the armor, which is why I think a lot of analysts are calling for a matter of time before there's a New Zealand victory today. I'm not quite sure that's going to be the case.
Well, they start leading by 165. It strikes me, we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go through this opening session. It strikes me that actually New Zealand getting bowled out early before lunch is actually the best chance of winning for both teams.
I think, for England certainly, because I think 2 sessions give them enough time to get this. You've got Root, you've got Burns, obviously with a lot of confidence from the first innings. Maybe Sibley, there'll be a miracle.
Robinson will start us off with a length delivery on off stump, which is blocked back to the bowler by the Kiwi opener, Tom Latham. Robinson from the pavilion end has taken 2 for 8 in his 9 overs in this second innings. He's had a very good test debut. Might have to wait a little bit until his second test, given the fallout of his social media output as a teenager. We shall jingle up Ollie Robinson after this next ball, and indeed Tom Latham, the New Zealand opener, wearing a little bit of sort of black muscle tape on his front arm as well as the arm guard. This is down the leg side, and Bracey falls at it down the right, down the leg side to his right. Doesn't take it cleanly, but manages to stop it. And there is no run off the bowling of this Test debutant.
Yeah, just to complete what I was.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize the jingle was up. Couldn't hear it well. No, just to complete what I was saying, I think it's time for Dan Lawrence to stand as well. So I think England have a better than England's chance.
3 slips away as Robinson is in, gets this one to deck away from Tom Latham, who leaves it alone through to the keeper James Bracey. There is no run. A jingle for the Kiwi opener.
He opens up batting or sometimes keeps wicket. He doesn't bowl great, but I still don't wanna face him, Tom Latham.
And his companion, the world's angriest night watchman.
That's Neil Wagner. He's my boss. And when he takes 5 wickets in an over, it was moida.
Not a huge amount of swing and seam thus far. Robinson probably more of a seam bowler than a swing bowler. Tall man, hits the deck hard. It's this one to hold its line, slightly up the hill perhaps, as Latham blocks to mid-wicket, and there is no run. Stuart Broad is warming up to potentially start from the nursery end. Interesting that Robinson, Tony, has got the nod. It would be quite unusual to not see England start the day with Broad and Anderson.
Yeah, interesting enough, I was shuffling my notes before we started, and I'd put Anderson and Broad at the top, expecting that they would. But to be fair, he's the man in form. He's already taken, was it 2? He's taken both, hasn't he?
He has,
so far.
4 in the first innings as well. He's going round the wicket now to Latham. Just the third slip has come out, I think, into a catching position on the onside as Robinson comes in, trying to use that slope to move the ball in and then away from Latham. This is too wide, and Latham leaves through to the keeper. There is no
a little bit of swing
run.
though.
A little bit of movement
Yeah.
away, maybe off the seam as well, but far too wide for Latham to be
Right.
bothered about.
You've got 2 wickets at 0.88. I think it's fair to say that you can get him to open.
I was looking at some stats on Anderson and Broad yesterday, and it was statistically one of the unluckiest spells that cricketers have ever recorded from Anderson and Broad in terms of quality and not
That's
taking
put together
wickets.
by Stuart Broad, probably.
Full delivery from Robinson, targeting the stumps. Latham drives back to the bowler, and there is no run. A good start from Ollie Robinson, a maiden to start with. He has the quite remarkable figures of 10 overs, 4 maidens, 2 for 8. New Zealand 62 for 2. Let's go to your tweets.
Well, I'll start on YouTube, actually. Daniel Keevy says, good morning from a stormy Winnipeg. It's 5 a.m. and I'm hoping for a positive result. Well, a warm welcome to you, Daniel. Leah says, morning everyone. I feel like we need at least one spectacularly entertaining collapse to avoid a draw today. Jersey Oak says, morning all, we're doomed. Sat in Amsterdam airport waiting for a Heathrow flight to 11 nights of quarantine. Need to buy lots of duty-free booze. Yes, you do, Jersey Oak. Jay Grover says, morning all, proper low effort shirt today, Knackle. White Hart looks a bit hippie and all. Farong says, greetings from Dhaka. Will we get a positive result? Basically, Wagner needs to throw the bat from ball 2. I will give him 1 not out to get his eye in. Or 1, yes. Kiwis would need 250 to feel safe, but cricket is a strange game for some. Have I got some more time now?
It is going to be the tall men starting off proceedings. Stuart Broad from the nursery end.
What would make Broad walk?
If his stumps were knocked down,
What would make Broad walk?
caught 5 feet off the
What
ground,
would make Broad walk?
if he trod on his
What
stumps,
would make Broad walk?
if God was one of the...
Broad round the wicket to the left-hander, as is his modus operandi. Full delivery, a big appeal for an LBW. Might just have been shading down leg. No bat on it, says umpire Michael Goff, who made 2 uncharacteristic errors yesterday. One of the best umpires in the world. It was a full delivery. Broad went for the celeb appeal to Gully and then turned round to the umpire. Just shading down leg, I think.
I think so.
England
Root
only-
seemed interested, didn't he? But
Well, yeah, going to appeal, but England only have 1 review left after wasting 2 yesterday, and perhaps slightly lucky to retain the 3rd and to dismiss Kane Williamson. Stuart Broad still looking for a first wicket since the first innings of the Sri Lanka series. It's been well over 80 overs now, close to without a wicket. 2 slips for Latham as Broad comes in round the wicket. Full delivery, a little bit of swing into the left-hander. Latham drives, Broad gets half a hand on it but can't stop Latham coming through for a well-judged single, certainly not bothering to protect Neil Wagner, who did show in the first innings, and indeed over the winter, that he has a little bit about him with the bat.
Well, if there was enough time, Wagner would fancy he would get Disney's record.
well, the Tubble Ton.
Yeah. I love
Highest
the
ever
fact
score
that,
for a night watchman.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, I love the fact that Dizzy never fails to send a tweet the moment somebody scores a double ton.
Always.
It never fails.
Broad in, arms pumping, past umpire Goff, goes wider in the crease. Latham has a splash at it, so much for the night watchman, and it races away down to 3rd man off the outside edge. First boundary of the morning, first runs off the bat. In fact, no, not quite, but first boundary of the morning for New Zealand.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Something about if you're going to flash hard, and that cleared Gully by some distance. Hard to tell if New Zealand are going to go for the declaration or if this is just Wagner being Wagner.
You certainly
But
had
they
a
might
swing
as
at
well
that,
score
didn't
as many runs as they can, right? I mean, there's no downside to this from where they are.
No World Test Championship points up for grabs. It's a little bit of a free swing for New Zealand and England to some extent. Full delivery, nicely driven by Wagner. Doesn't beat mid-on. Mark Wood doing the fielding, and there is no run. Little hint of swing from Stuart Broad. Again, more of a seam bowler than a swing bowler, but can get the ball to move in the air. Certainly Southey and Anderson were getting the ball to move considerably yesterday. Ross Taylor, the New Zealand number 4, padded up on probably be his last tour of England, the 37-year-old, leading run scorer in New Zealand Test and One-Day International history, although will probably be overtaken by Kane Williamson at some point. fine player.
Once he gets out of England, yeah.
Wagner waits, bat aloft, Broad very flamboyantly flicked through mid-wicket. A shot of
Lovely
real
shot.
class and authority from Neil Wagner. Square of the man at mid-wicket, and it rocketed into the fence at mid-wicket. 4 runs.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Tony, what a shot. That hit the mound stand fence before anyone could move.
Oh, he can bat, and I think he's setting out like he wants to enjoy himself.
It's quite a nice foil with Latham very solid at one end and in there, and Wagner playing his shots at the other.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to go for it. They're going to score as many as they can. I don't think they care if they lose wickets here.
Broad, full delivery. Wagner tries to drive, squirts off the outside edge all along the ground to Rory Burns at backward point. Burns sends in a very bad throw and then gives a little wink to camera about it all. 10 runs off the over, including the leg by. New Zealand 72 for 2, lead by 175. Well, if that is the case, I'm glad, because the worst thing of all would be this game petering out into a draw where no one's interested.
I think there's very little chance of them anyone going for a draw in this one. It's just in an exciting position at the moment. There's no reason for either team to go for a draw at the moment unless they someone down shutters in the last 1 hour or something.
Come to your social media messages after this first ball of the third over of the day from Robinson, who is going to continue round the wicket to Latham. 2 slips, backward point, cover mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket. 2 men back on the hook as Robinson is in full delivery, tempting Latham outside off stump, but the Latham's not for tempting, and there is no run. Socials, Tony.
Yeah, Colin says, how can you be statistically unlucky? Damon Lewis says, lovely sunny day in Dublin, Ireland, chaps. Stuck in work all day. Are you over the South Africa games in lovely Malahide? Don't know about that.
South Africa are indeed coming to Ireland for some white ball stuff.
Colin says, Flashhard, is there room for a Lord Flashheart woof jingle for a streaky edge boundary? That's not a bad idea.
Sure, we could nip one up. Full delivery, a little bit too leg-sidey. Latham flicks it out to deep square leg, and they come through for a single. Statistically unlucky. There is a CricViz have an expected wickets model, not dissimilar principle to expected goals in football, and they looked at it, and it's one of the top 5 or 6 in terms of wicketless spells. So there are measures for these things.
But Broad would really say he was statistically unlucky.
It was Broad and Anderson.
No, I know, but not in this context. But if Yuvraj had hit him for 37 instead of 36 in that hole.
No. Change of field.
I mean, it's just they bowled so well. They really one of them deserved the wicket.
And two or three by potential models. A deep point has gone back as Robinson goes over the wicket to Wagner. He has a short ball. Has that been dropped by Bracey? I'm not sure if there was actually a toe end on that or not. Wagner had a huge pull shot at it. I'm not sure whether he actually made any sort of connection at all, but Bracey diving and falling away to his left spilled it in front of first slip. No, missed. Complete fresh air shot from Neil Wagner, and Bracey didn't really move his feet.
I mean, he flashed at it when it was almost at second slip, trying to pull it.
It seemed by how wide it was at the toe end that there must have been a toe end on it, but no, Wagner was only vaguely in the same postcode as the delivery. Bracey's keeping has got slightly untidier as this game has gone on. He is a specialist wicketkeeper, but relatively inexperienced. Good delivery from Robinson. That's one to leap from a length. Wagner himself would have been proud of that delivery. Rears past the shoulder of the bat, taken by Bracey cleanly this time. Through to the keeper, there is no run. Every time you see Ollie Robinson bowl, and it's hard not to be impressed with him as a bowler.
Oh, completely. I mean, honestly, this is the first time I've really seen him bowl, because I haven't seen him bowl in the county before this, and he's been super impressive.
The one thing
he's really been super impressive.
One thing less impressive is the occasional no ball, and that is his third of the match.
Over the line!
Huh?
I'm sorry, Smokey. You were over the line.
Short ball. Wagner has a pull. It's come off the toe edge of the bat, and Bracey settles under it. Third wicket for Ollie Robinson. 3 for 10 in 10.4 overs. Neil Wagner's entertaining little cameo is done. The no balls are checked automatically by the third umpire, so we don't need to hang around for that. Wagner inspects the toe end of his bat as though it has betrayed him, but he is hoisted by his own petard, bounced out by Ollie Robinson for 10.
How's that? You messed about, I caught you out. How's that?
Might make
He's
Bracey
going to
feel a
throw
little
that
bit
bat
better.
away. He's going to throw that bat away. The way he's looking at it as he's walking off.
He really isn't happy with it, is he? Something workman tools something. Before you, we'll go to small social media messages in a second as the at the fall of that wicket, New Zealand 74-3, leading by 177. But I should just tell you about the GPL. The GPL is open, our game of skill and prediction, where you have to guess the number of runs that will be scored in today's play, and there's all sorts of scenarios in play today. You have until lunchtime to do so. You go to guerrillacricket.com/competition, sign in or register, and guess how many number of runs will be scored in the day's play. You pay £1 per guess. You can have as many guesses as you like. Your pounds go in the pot, and if you are absolutely bang on the final result of runs scored in the day, you win the pot, which starts today at £64. Not bad for a £1 stake. guerrillacricket.com/competition. You have until lunchtime to do so. That's 1 p.m. UK time, and then which would make that midnight New Zealand time. Enter the New Zealand leading run scorer in Test history, Lutero Rosputoa Lote Taylor.
Wouldn't it be good to be Ross Taylor, even with his old making boat? Wouldn't it be good to be Ross Taylor to anyone?
Howard Jones, wasn't it? Was that Howard Jones?
Pass.
Okay, I think it was Howard Jones. I'm sure someone will tell me if I'm wrong.
They crossed while the ball was in the air. This was a horrible delivery that dies through and to Bracey on the third bounce, and he parries it round the corner like a goalkeeper tipping a penalty around the post. Rory Burns has to chase this back towards third man, and they'll come through for probably 2 byes. Tony, you were just saying that the catch would make James Bracey feel a little bit better. His second dismissal in Test cricket. He's not having an easy time of it.
He's not, and you know, at that one he'd been almost better leaving. I think First Slip might have had a better chance. He sort of diverted it away, didn't he? But that, you know, as a young chap playing your debut Test at Lords, a duck will play on your mind.
Oh dear, that's not going to help. Another workout for James Bracey, who throws his head to the skies. An in-swinger from Robinson that started about third stump outside leg stump, but just went wider and wider and wider. 4 byes, absolutely nothing James Bracey could do about that. After bowling so well, Ollie Robinson has completely lost his radar.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Is Bracey still in high school?
He's 24 years old. He is very baby-faced, isn't he? Has kept at Lords before for Gloucestershire, but only a couple of, I think maybe even only once actually this year.
Yeah, against the
So
middle.
the expression on his face as that ball went past him was, I mean, it was precious. That was like a high school wicketkeeper, the expression.
There was
He was gonna cry.
there was a real sense of, oh come on. And it's quite hard to blame him, to be honest, for that. There was absolutely nothing he could do about that. Wickets that Robinson has taken, bowling Devon Conway off the inside edge, getting Kane Williamson trapped LBW, and then bouncing out Neil Wagner. Ross
Just
Taylor,
say hello to Warren, by the way, who said good morning to us. So good morning to Warren.
Ross Taylor on strike. Just the 2 slips. Oh no, in fact it's the end of the over after that 4 by. So Taylor will be on strike to Stuart Broad over the wicket to Ross Taylor. Full delivery clipped off the pads, but straight to Dan Lawrence at mid wicket, and there is no run. So that was there was a curious over. .1. No ball wicket. 2 byes, 4 byes. All sorts happening.
Hombre Nuevo says, morning Gorillas, I'm ready to put GPL money on a dreamer's bet of an over rate and previous day's play defying 350 plus runs and an England victory, with also maybe a few safer lower ones. To misquote, a coward you are, Hombre, but an expert on cricket you are not. There you are.
Broad.
350 runs on day 5. Okay.
Loping in, full outswinger. Taylor blocks it out to deep point, and they come through for a single. Ollie Pope doing the fielding out there. So England kind of hedging their bets between attack and run preservation. Brings Latham back onto strike. Ross Taylor looked a bit scratchy in the first innings. It's fair to say. Before
Hedging their bets between the two Knuckle sounds like they don't have a plan. They have no idea what they're doing.
Who's this, England or?
I think they have too many.
England.
I think
No,
they-
right. Knuckle described it as hedging their bets. They said that you describe it like that, it sounds like they have no plan.
I think they have possibly too many plans. Can amount to the same thing, of course. Broad back round the wicket to Latham, and that is an absolutely stunning delivery. That one threatened to come in and then zipped away off the seam. Latham quite rightly trying to play it through mid-on, but was beaten by, you would have to be a very good player to nick that. An absolutely stunning delivery from Stuart Broad.
Latham's
Somehow
there.
he didn't edge it. Oh, absolute poetry in motion from Stuart
There's
Broad.
nothing you could do with that one. Huh? From middle stump, I mean, it's pretty much the middle stump.
Devilish delivery from around the wicket to the left-hander. It's part of why Broad has been quite as good as he has been in the last 2 or 3 years. Goes wider on the crease, trying to angle this into Latham, but it starts too wide and he leaves alone through to Bracey. There is no run.
Mogg says Robinson getting Barrowman, odd times. Neil Franklin says bonjour à toutes et à tous. So we've gone a bit French. But bienvenue to you, Neil Franklin. Paul Howarth has sent us Grubby Jr. playing some magnificent cover drives this morning. Oh, that's a very stylish looking shot as well, the picture he sent. Clearly learning from his dad, I suspect.
Broad in, forcing Latham onto the front foot, defends solidly into the offside, and there is no run. Signs of the Stuart Broad menace returning. Wicketless so far in this innings, but he's been very good yesterday and today. New Zealand 81 for 3, lead by 184.
Muttley says, morning all, fingers crossed for the draw. Leah says, I think New Zealand should aim to take the lead to around 250 as quickly as possible and declare over lunch at the absolute latest.
Absolutely.
Or
I
they
agree
risk
with
that,
her
but
on
we...
that.
Yeah. Not sure.
Broad in full in-swinging delivery, dropped at mid-wicket. Would have been a very good catch by, I think that's Zach Crawley, the tall man diving away to his right. It was flicked in the air by Latham. Crawley diving to his right in at short mid-wicket, couldn't quite cling on. Broad has been very unlucky again in this over, and visibly so, with the edge just past the stumps, and then Crawley dropping
he should
a
have taken
very
that one, sorry.
dropping a difficult chance. He got both hands to it. He did well to get there, but the hands closed too early and it spilled out. Tom Latham dropped on 32. He survives. New Zealand 81 for 3. A very eventful first 4 overs.
He should have got that catch, honestly. I mean, he had both hands to it, and yeah, you'd normally expect him to take both.
It's a curious one. I mean, having got there, he'll be annoyed he dropped it. But it's also, if he takes it, it's a very good catch. So, a curious one. Good effort by Crawley, just couldn't quite hang on, but that is what he's in position for. Robinson will continue, hoping to re-find his accuracy after a rather wayward end to the over. Ross Taylor finds somebody loitering behind the bowler's arm in the pavilion, perhaps distracted by a flash of egg and bacon, and so pulls away. Actually, there's more New Zealand support staff than there are members in the and non-playing members of the squad than there are members in the pavilion. Perhaps they're all
Yeah, the
inside.
members have had to distribute themselves.
Yeah, but I was going to say that there are a lot of Kiwi supporters around the ground, many more than I saw on day one at least.
Robinson in full delivery. Taylor lunges jerkily forward and defends into the offside. There is no run.
A lot of black shirts around the ground.
Yeah, London's Kiwi community has come out to support their fantastic team. Probably the best New Zealand Test team of all time. Will be going up against India for the first ever World Test Championship final in a couple of weeks' time. Cannot wait for that game. It's going to be an absolute cracker. As Robinson is in, left alone, flamboyantly outside off stump by Ross Taylor. Again, dives through to Bracey, and there is no run.
Yeah, I guess the Indians getting in some quarantine practice at the moment.
Yeah, I saw they're all watching county cricket. I saw Ashwin in typically nerdy watch all the cricket Ashwin fashion praising Darren Stevens on Twitter. And he's watching all of the Sky masterclasses and putting them into the supercomputer.
They're all at Southampton, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
As Robinson is in bowling from mid-crease into the pads of Ross Taylor. Would have been a hell of a shot if he'd missed that, but he turns it away to Ollie Pope at square leg, and there's an easy
I remember the Manchester City squad all on their balconies at the Hilton Hotel in Southampton, watching Middlesex and Hampshire, with a look in most cases of utter bemusement on their face, wondering what on earth was unfolding before them. It was quite amusing.
It's a very big Indian contingent at the moment in quarantine, because it's the men's team, it's the women's team, it's their families, it's
all the support staff. Short ball from Robinson doesn't quite get up, and Latham's able to pull it away behind square with a fair amount of control. Lawrence out there on the deep square leg boundary doing the fielding. They come through for a very easy single, and Latham will keep the strike. He's on 33. Ross Taylor onto sorry, there's 2 balls left of the over. What am I talking about? James Anderson goes and does his shine the ball and look grumpy at it thing.
So is Kane Williamson, you reckon, saving himself for the World Test Championship?
I mean, what he got in the first innings? It's a full delivery outside off stumper, long half volley, and
Lovely shot.
Ross Taylor slightly walking into the drive, but gets a full swing of the bat and just strokes it away pleasantly through extra cover. 4 runs.
1 2 ka 4 4 2 ka 1. My name is Lakhan. My name is Lakhan.
Just a little bit overpitched from Robinson, and Ross Taylor was onto it very quickly. I mean, Williamson in the first innings defended the ball with slightly too soft hands and it rolled back onto the stumps, and then got a sort of tightish LBW when he wasn't set during a good bowling spell this time
Well,
round.
he doesn't really enjoy batting in England, right? I mean, from his record.
Oh, good delivery from Robinson, much better delivery. Angling in to Ross Taylor and then zipping away from him at the last possible second up the hill. Good delivery to finish from Robinson. He has finally conceded more runs than he's bowled overs. 3 for 16 off his 12. New Zealand 87 for 3. I mean, Williamson has 100 and a 50 both at Lords. He has a quite good county championship record, averages about 40. So lots of low scores, but some good ones as well. Tony, socials.
Yes, indeed. Matt Searle has sent us the latest odds from this morning. England 25 to 1, New Zealand 10 to 1. The draw 1 to 12 on. Worth a punt on a result, he says. Let me see. It was Nick Kershaw, apparently. Dave Wood is putting me right. It wasn't Howard Jones, it was Nick Kershaw, that jingle. So thank you very much. Mogg says, that wasn't Howard Jones, it was me. But I can see how you'd struggle to tell us apart.
Broad in,
Okay.
Broad continuing round the wicket, and Latham leaves alone through to the keeper. There is no run.
James Humberson says, morning, gorgeous gorillas. Chilly 8 degrees, evening in Sydney. Morning to you, James. Tim Everingham. Evening, gorillas. Lovely to hear your voices once again. Wondering why the new developments at the nursery end have been closed this test, and if it'll be open in time for the India tests. Yeah, they've kind of nominated 3 sections around the grounds of A, B and C in different corners. So it's only a third full. And therefore that's probably why they haven't felt they needed to open the new sections.
Broad in, wideish first slip and a second. Short ball pulled by Latham out to Pope. 1 bounce on the deep square leg boundary. Good throw by Pope, and they come through for a single. Yeah, 7,500 out of the total, close to 30,000 I think now capacity at Lords with the redone Compton and Edridge stands and the new Warner stand. So yeah, for the India test matches, it should be more packed. We'll see 17,500 at Edgbaston next week for the second test, which I'm sure will be very lively indeed.
Yep. That should be a good one.
Holly's stand will be enjoying themselves, no doubt. Ross Taylor takes a little bit of time to just set himself. 2 slips, backward point, extra cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket and long leg as Broad is in full delivery. Taylor again lunges forward in that way of his and blocked into the offside. There is no run. Ross Taylor always gives the impression that he's batting with a bat that's slightly too short. There's not really a forward step as such. There's a sort of forward lean from Taylor. He's trying not to commit too much onto the front foot.
I mean, he looks to me like a rugby player with a bat a lot of the time. The way he approaches them.
Was it 8,000 test runs or close to? Onto the hips of Taylor, and he works this away nicely into the onside, and they'll get 2 down to long leg. England have just started to let the runs flow a little bit too freely in the last little while, and so New Zealand have built the lead to nearly 200. 7,399 test runs for Ross Taylor at 46.
He's a fantastic batsman.
Highest score of 290, I think, which he got at the Wacker in 2015.
Yep, on one of the flattest pitches of all time, but still.
But I enjoy watching him play, but every time, maybe because of his Samoan descent, I've got this whole thing of seeing him as a rugby player every time he walks out there.
Taylor full and Broad full, and Taylor again with a sort of lungy drive that he doesn't time. It goes to mid on. There is no run. Yeah, his mother is Samoan. Only one of 2 Pacific Islanders to ever play international cricket for New Zealand. Still only the second, which is curious in a country that does actually embrace its Pacific.
Well, I mean, if you
heritage.
think about the fact that Dizzy Gillespie was the first Aborigine to play for Australia, then it's not that bad.
Last ball of the over from Broad to Taylor, who is on 8. Good delivery from Broad. Well played by Taylor, actually, because that was arrowing into off stump, and he manages to come forward and flick it into the onside. They come through for a single, so Ross Taylor moves relatively fluently to 9 and with minimal risk. 5 runs off the over. New Zealand 91 for 3, lead by 194. I have enjoyed this approach from New Zealand. Tony, what have we got on socials?
Jeff Thomas, not that Jeff Thomas, says, good morning, Gorillas. Colin says, what score would you declare in on going for a win, and what do you think England can chase? Ooh.
Less than 250 probably.
270 tops,
It's
250 less than ideally.
It's time, isn't it, really, for New Zealand? How long do
I
they think
so.
they need to bowl England out?
Warren says Bracey looks very young and very old at the same time. A curious case. Jay Grover says, just read a Shane Bond interview. I'll hold that and read the rest of it after.
In comes Ollie Robinson, that little cowlick of hair sticking up from the crown. Good delivery, tempting Latham, Taylor rather, into a little flirt at it. He just withdraws his hands from the line of the ball. Goes through to Bracey at waist height. There is no run. Just a little bit of movement up the hill from Ollie Robinson. Slope from the pavilion end, takes it to the leg side for the right-hander. Dom Sibley mutters something in the slips.
He's probably praying for some runs.
I shall overcome is probably what he's saying.
Robinson in good rising delivery. Taylor more or less played inside the line of the ball, didn't follow it with his hands this time. Through to the keeper, there is no run. Sibley got a good ball early from Jameson. Don't know if there was all that much he could have done about it.
Colin on YouTube is saying,
Not a huge
Shane.
Sorry, please. Sorry.
Tony has taken off his headphones in disgust. As Robinson is in, third ball of the over, right arm over the wicket to Taylor, who has a push, and the edge doesn't carry to third slip, just bounced short of him, but a rather lungy delivery from a rather lungy stroke again from Taylor, who's been troubled by Robinson in this over. Tony, you were midpoint.
I was just going to say that Colin on YouTube says Shane Bond, I say, is easily the best ever bowler to be always injured. Jay Grover was reading from an interview from him. He's apparently bought whiskey, coffee, and about 7 kilograms of chocolate and lollies from home, so was sorted mint, says Jay Grover.
Robinson in nice rhythmical run up from the tall man. A hack from Taylor from outside off stump. An effective hack. Pope has to come round to his left from deep square leg, and they come through 4-2. One of the less stylish shots I've seen Ross Taylor play.
He's probably trying to just get Ollie Robinson a bit off his rhythm.
Drag that from 2 feet outside off stump. Robinson has a little smile at him and a little word with Ross Taylor, clearly discomforted by those previous 3 deliveries. I wonder if there's an element of, well, if I keep poking at one of these, I'm going to edge it, so I might as well have a swing at it. Robinson in. Another big swing from Ross Taylor, an LBW appeal probably going over the top of the stumps. Certainly doesn't interest umpire Richard Kettleborough very much. England skipper and keeper and captain are having a word to see if they want to review it.
I cannot believe they're
oh
even
my
thinking
god!
about
Oh my word! They're going to go for the review with 2 seconds left.
That has to be one of the worst DRSs taken in a while. I'll eat my words.
Well, we thought that yesterday, and then it turned out to be out. But I did think this was going over the top of the stumps. Tony?
Oh, I thought on height. Yeah, it seemed to be too high for me. We'll have a look. Pitch is slightly short.
It's hit him.
He is crouching low, but it
hit him on bended back leg, sort of on the thigh pad.
Umpires call at very best, and I think still missing.
I suspect you're right. I think it's hit him in line with off stump, just about. There's no bottom edge. It was a real step and fetch shot from Ross Taylor. Clearly doesn't fancy himself playing with the vertical bat against Robinson, getting the ball to move from this pavilion end. Well, we don't know whether it was going over the top of the stumps, but Taylor had walked across so far to off stump that it hit him a good stump outside the line of off stump, so it cannot be given out LBW, and England have wasted, you have to say, that final review.
Very, very poor DRS.
New Zealand, by contrast, have 3 reviews remaining, but England will not have recourse to DRS for the remainder of this innings. A man goes back at deep mid-wicket now as Taylor looks to target the onside. Maybe there's some discomfort, maybe this is a tactic of New Zealand to try and set a declaration. Last ball of the over from Robinson. It's a full delivery. Taylor has a swing at it outside off stump. Taylor, a good one-day player, but has not looked especially comfortable in trying to pick up the pace. End of the over. New Zealand 93 for 3, lead by 196, and we hand over now for the next half-hour stint to Ian Forth, Nestle Boy, and first Gary Naylor.
Well, hello. It was an interesting approach from the New Zealanders in that first half hour, a little more positive than I expected. I do think there's wickets in this pitch, though. But England are going to have to be aiming at the top of the off stump if they want to extract them. I'm delighted to have Nestle Boy alongside me, and I hope Ian is with us too, although I can't see him. This ball was outside off stump. There is no run. How are you, Sean?
I'm fine. I think Ian has joined us.
Hello, Ian.
Yes,
how are you?
I'm definitely here. Can you see me, or at least you can hear
now.
me?
I can see and hear you. Fourthy, I should say. You know, you got to put the E on the end, or the Y, just to get everyone's nickname, haven't you?
Yeah, particularly being Australian.
Yeah, Forthy does sound like a character in Porridge, down the landing with Fletch and Lenny Godber. Stuart Broad starts running up and then pulls out, winces a little as though he's twinged something.
One of the inmates or one of the warders, would you say, Gary? I don't know.
Well, yes.
Gopper, Fulfie's coming up.
A sidekick of genial Harry Grout, I suspect. Here is Tom Latham, and the now recovered Broad is in and on the hip, and Latham just pushes that into the leg side. Whether we can already start inquests about Stuart Broad's wicketlessness, I don't know. He hasn't had a lot of luck with his bowling, but when a debutant is taking as many wickets as Josh Hazlewood, I'm sorry, Ollie Robinson, I do get those two mixed up now and again, then I think that there will be some talk. There will be some talk about Broad, unless he can extract a few wickets.
So Hendo prefers the Mike Hendrick comparison
Ross Taylor
for Robinson
has just bottom hand that to third man. Perhaps only Ross Taylor can bottom hand the ball to third man, but he did. It was length, and Taylor's looking to play positively, and he jabbed the bat down on it, and it ran down the hill. Rory Burns, man of the moment yesterday. Whether he will be today or not remains to be seen, but he chased it down. I think they got through for 2. Mike Hendrick, more Josh Hazelwood for me. Hendrick had slightly more sling in his action, I think, but yeah, that's a fair enough comparison.
Tangerarms. I think Peter Vaughan was Grout, wasn't he, in Porridge, and Richard Beckinsale was a father of Kate.
Yes, that's right. As Stuart Broad's in on off stump, there is no run. Many younger listeners may know Peter Vaughan from an excellent turn he gave in Game of Thrones. Yeah,
that's right. And also, funnily enough, Ronnie Barker's son Larry was creative director at my agency for many years.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
So there's a few people gone through the advertising route. Wasn't there Salman Rushdie was in advertising? He wrote "naughty but nice" as a line for the Milk Marketing Board, I think, as well.
Murray Walker.
Cream Cakes, yes. Faye Weldon.
This ball is just pushed into the offside leg side by Taylor, and there is no run. And of course, Don Draper.
Yes. Faye Weldon was go to work on an egg, I think. Martin Amis was in advertising for 2 days before saying, "This isn't for me."
Yes, yes. I think he extricated some of that bile in Money with John Self. It was more in television and film, I think, than advertising. But there was a few barbs directed towards advertising. Sean, do you remember Murray Walker's famous advertising slogan?
Yes.
Is Ross Taylor gets one outside leg stump, and this goes to
I do.
James Bracey, who Bracey just not seem to be able to catch the ball. I think this is a flaw in a wicket keeper. Nobody thinks it's easy keeping wicket at Lords, but Bracey looks what he is, an extremely inexperienced wicket keeper. Last year I said there were 20 wicket keepers in English cricket who were more accomplished than Joss Butler. One of them is not James Bracey. I think we can say that on the evidence of this match. New Zealand 97 for 3. Yes, either Forthy or Sean, the famous Murray Walker line from Everton.
Well, wasn't it something to do with birdseed?
Was it?
No, I think it was I think it's a Mars a day helps you work, rest and play.
No, urban myth.
Oh, was it an urban myth?
Yeah, urban myth.
It was it was Trill. It was birdseed Trill he did, and
Trill?
I think he did opal fruits made to make your mouth water.
Ah, yes. I used to say that as opal fruits made to make you a porker.
I need to get on to tweets.
Oh, you do?
Between the balls, Gary.
Please do. Ollie Robinson pulls out so we can give you a tweet.
Leia is not impressed. The MCC members have an insanely bad fashion sense. Dress, pants, shirt, egg and bacon tie and a baseball cap wouldn't look out of place in one of the less classy corners of Palma de Mallorca. Disgusting. I tend to agree. I think it's a horrible look. And Indo sounds quite grumpy with England. Please let him know if he wants to be the most grumpy at England guerrilla cricket commentator, he has some composition. Indeed.
Robinson is in, and Ross Taylor inevitably shovels a ball from on or about off stump into the leg side. He has no timing, he has no real elegance in that stroke, but he does get a run for it, which extends the New Zealand lead to 201. The camera picks out a rather forlorn looking Bracey, to be honest.
Well, on the Bracey issue, Mog says, what the heck is that weird hand movement Bracey does sometimes as the bowler comes in? And he also says, play the Kettleborough jingle. Oh, and he also says, Forthy, how's the experience going so far?
Oh, that's very nice to us. Extremely pleasant. Thank you. And most enjoyable.
Extremely pleasant.
Robinson's in, and this ball is deflected down to deep third man, and New Zealand, who've been busy pretty much from the off this morning, get another single. Latham goes to 36, much busier than they were last night when they really just played for the close, more or less, through the session, I felt.
What number do you think New Zealand are looking at, the lead?
I think that they're looking at 2:45 is what they're looking for. That's not a lead of 245. That's 2:45 p.m.
Oh,
You might shove England in at 3:00. This ball is pushed back to Robinson, and there is near run.
But
what about yourself?
If they get to 250 before that,
they're not going to declare it.
Do you think? Well, no, I'm saying what number? Not. Do you think it is purely a time issue?
I think it's a time issue. I think they'll want to have sort of 4 hours or so bowling at England, which 3:00 will give them roughly that. I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about yourself, Phil?
Well, I think they'll do everything they can to not destabilise the lead up to the World Final. So this will be a conservative declaration.
An enormous hoik from Ross Taylor, who thinks he's still playing in the World Cup final of a couple of years ago. He missed that. He would have missed it if he'd had a second bat in his hand. He was so far away from it.
That wasn't conservative.
No.
True.
I think that Southey and Jameson will be a handful on here, and I think if they can have a session where it doesn't matter if they get a few edges to third man, i.e. the final session of the day, I think England could lose 3 or 4 wickets quite quickly. As Taylor has another hoik, although this time he middles it, and that's gone absolutely miles to Cow Corner and into the tavern stand for a mighty one of these.
Well, he rather gave us a dress rehearsal of that shot before, didn't he?
He did. This was much better, though. He kept his shape a little better. Ball was nearer to him. I mean, this does suggest that Ross Taylor perhaps has been sent out there and say, look, try and get a quick 50. Latham hasn't changed his approach a great deal, but maybe they're doing as I often think sides should do is just playing a joker. You know, if you lose the wicket, it doesn't really matter that much. But if you get 50 in 40 minutes, this could be fun.
Yes, I think it's the old Jaya Surya pinch hitter role he's playing here, isn't it?
Yeah, there might be something in that. That's Flintoff's father there in the crowd who caught it. Well, it would have been if it was 2005. So Robinson is in, and that's a horrible delivery that jumps at Ross Taylor, who I think got it on the gloves into the offside. And this pitch, as it often does when it clouds over at Lord's, is beginning to misbehave rather more than it did in the sunshine. But we'll have your tweets.
Colin says, first World Cup final reference today, 36 minutes in. Nick Reed says, missed by the width of Grubby's face. I'm not quite sure. It must have been one of the previous balls. Leia says, I think New Zealand should declare 250 ahead. There was a piece by Jared about 250 being the magic number in the fourth innings chase. What's a number? Andrew Whittaker is settling in here in Auckland for another night of great guerrilla commentary. Fortunately, it's a public holiday here tomorrow, though he's typed Pulich. Do they have a public holiday for the... was he the Chelsea manager?
Not sure. Stuart Broad is in. This is outside off stump, left alone by Latham, and there is no run.
There have been so many Chelsea managers. We've filled 2 sides of an A4 sheet of paper since the Russians took over.
Surprised that none of us 3 have had a go. Really, statistically, this would be a decent chance. That was a good ball from Broad, which seemed away from round the wicket to the left-hander. It's that kind of delivery that makes me think that 3 hours or 3 to 4 hours batting for England may be tricky. The weather may supervene, of course, with showers forecast for this afternoon. And I'm not just talking about England's top 7. Boom, boom. As Broad wide on the crease around the wickets. There's a big appeal from Broad. He's been given out LBW as Tom Latham. I think he'll review that because I think he'll think that's going down leg side, and he may not be wrong. Let's have a look here with 3 reviews. Surely they've got to do it. Surely, yes, he does review. It was very full from Broad, but I could see 2 stumps. When you can see 2 stumps, the ball's going to be doing something to hit the third. But let's see.
Full, but it only has to clip, of course. It's unusual to get one of those because of the geometry, but it's not impossible.
See, the ball does curve in. You can see 2 stumps. It's hit him in front of leg. He may just be umpire's call here that will give the wicket to Broad.
Yeah. I think that's umpire's score, but we'll see.
It's full of length. It's not quite a Yorker, and the ball is indeed umpire's call. So Stuart Broad has his first wicket of the Test match. It's only really kissing the leg stump there. Latham perhaps a little unfortunate to be given out on the field there. The ball was hitting. The umpire had every right to give him out. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, the umpire, when he can see two stumps, is going to give that not out. And Latham, had he been given not out, had he reviewed, and obviously he wouldn't have needed to, but had England reviewed, he would. Well, they've got no reviews left, so all that's so much waffle. The fact of the matter is, Latham is out. It's the fourth wicket down for New Zealand.
Yes, Joe Root actually has not had a very good 24 hours. He was out before play even started yesterday. Yes, Joe Root was out before play even started at 10:59 yesterday, and he's had a little bit of a shocker. Oh, he had one good review, obviously, with Robinson on Williams, and maybe that counteracts everything else, but absolutely threw one review away this morning.
Well, I have a hypothesis about this, dubious point, which I'm about to make with imperious conviction. Yes. I think Root's quite keen not to have too many reviews left towards the back of the New Zealand innings, because there'll be a point, and it might be coming soon, when England are rather keener for New Zealand to be batting rather than England be batting. Now, if you've got your reviews and you're a top order bat for England and it's sort of 2 o'clock, do you want to be reviewing to be able to get to the crease quicker to start chasing 300? I don't think so. So I think England came out with a tactic to use the reviews early to avoid any kind of awkwardness late in the third innings, where when you know you're going to be batting for a draw, you want to be batting for as short a time as possible, not as long a time as possible. And so you don't really want to use your reviews in that situation. But it wouldn't be a very good look to be hit plumb in front and the bowler be, or indeed to edge it behind, and the bowler be pleading for a review and the captain saying, "Oh no, let's keep them out there, let's keep them batting." But the reality of it is that's probably the better tactic. But we have a new batsman.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and more. You know Henry Nichols is rocking up the score.
And Henry Nichols is in, gets one on leg stump, turns it round the corner. Ollie Robinson does the fielding. 1 run.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Jay Grover says, "Good Lord, total computer collapse. Have I missed out?" And I just said, nah. El Chopanos says, "If there's one shot which shouts fuck it at bad form in no uncertain terms, it was that one from Ross Taylor. He flicks his wrist almost like a good fast bowler would." And also, "Good evening, Gorilla Cricket." He says, "Good evening, El Chopanos."
I think I'm indebted to Knackle for the statistic that was Broad's first wicket in 81.1 overs of bowling in Test cricket.
Yes.
We're seeing a replay of it from side on. It was not the celeb appeal that we usually get from Broad. Ross Taylor gets one on his hip and tucks it off said hip into the leg side, and they look to take a 2 inside the circle where there's a white ball game, but it's not. And they take 1 inside the non-existent circle.
He's always been known to run hot and cold, Stuart Broad, but this is taking it to the next level. It really is.
Yeah. "Good morning," says Luigi Magpie. "Nearly 4 a.m. here. More Latin, please." I only know one sort of phrase in Latin. It's Victoria Concordia Crescit.
I see. Well, we've got Ed Benson on later, haven't we? So we can get some legal terms from the Latin, res ipsa loquitur and such things. As this ball is just pushed into the leg side by the big bottom hand of Harvey Nichols.
Yes, Victoria Crescit Concordia. Is that Arsenal?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Victory through harmony, I think it means, or something.
Nils Satis Nasai Optimum is Everton.
Well, I was going to say, Gary, you'd of course would know that. It's funny how they cling to Latin. These working class football clubs. Why?
Why just Arsenal working class?
Well, they were originally. They came from Woolwich.
Yeah.
Broad's in, and this goes down the leg side, and I've given some stick to James Bracey earlier on, but that was a pretty good one-handed take as the ball was slid past the off stump. It's the end of the over. New Zealand 107 for 4. Your tweets?
I think they were working class for about 5 minutes in their history before the Eton-educated investment bankers came in back in the day.
Yes.
Jeff G. Thomas, not that one, as Tony Bishop always says. Gary's view of Roots reviews, Occam's razor is clearly blunt. Alexandra Sutcliffe says, I'd love New Zealand to declare with a lead of 275. I'm more conservative than Jared Kimber, but suspect New Zealand even more risk averse. Hopefully Ross Taylor can put a few more in the stands. Jay Grover says, Bam Bass, Bant Bamus, Batis Bant, Banter Bants. I think that's his attempt at Latin.
It is, yes. That's the imperfect tense.
Messi Jez says that burning the reviews theory of Gary Naylor's has to be one of his most bizarre to date, and there've been a few.
Well, it's a thought. It's a Machiavellian one, but it's a thought. I have a quick story about Latin, which I'll give you after our new bowler has been jingled up, and that ball just dies in the pitch, and Bracey does well to take it.
Gary, Latin.
Do you know Mark Wood? Yes, he is an England bowler, quite good and pretty quick. So just a normal guy. Of course. Except for just one thing. What? He thinks that he's a horse. Right. What?
My younger boy did Latin at GCSE and could learn vast screeds of Latin seemingly effortlessly, which is a handy trick to have if you're a schoolboy. But I'll give you the story in a moment. As Wood's in and Taylor just dabs that to the Jonty Rhodes position of backward point, and there is no run. I understand the school was looking to go up market about 20 years ago, and to do so they wanted to change their motto to Latin. So their motto was, I listen, I see, I learn. And when the mock-up came back of the new badge with the Latin motto, it was audio video disco, which
excellent.
Which I'm not sure actually works, but it's not a bad story, is it?
My only experience with Latin was going to a Catholic mass in Latin. I wanted to kill the priest halfway through.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ross Taylor's playing a shot of ball here, and that sort of skews off the outside portion of the bat and goes to point, where because he's hitting the ball so hard, there's a single unless he hits it straight at the fielder, and so they are through for one.
There was an all-girls school near me when I was growing up. They had a big Latin motto, which was splattered all over the poor girls' blazers, which was Virgo Fidelis, faithful maiden.
Oh, very nice.
Really? Wow.
John Wetler's with us, Tasmania fan number 3 for the match. More life-changing radio for the cricket photo of Hobart. Welcome, Damien Clark.
Mark Wood's in again here, and this ball is elegantly played into the covers, but without any real force, more of a push than a drive by Harvey Nichols, and there is no run. I think Virgo Fidelis is third favourite for top scorer in the Euros, isn't he?
Of course, my favourite bit of Latin is Romans go home. Conjugate the verb to go.
Yes. That's not an imperative.
I've started
yes,
them off.
Indeed.
All right.
It says Romans go home. No, it doesn't.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
There are men of a certain age who I think can recite that scene word by word.
The 2 films worth I can recite.
Well, here's Biggest Woodison. He's in, and this ball is taken on the pad by Harvey Nichols, and Mark Wood runs through and then puts a decent shot away into the bottom corner there by hitting the leg stump with his foot. The ball hitting the leg stump via Mark Wood's foot. Yeah, not the most elegant of shots, but he did hit the stumps and dislodge the bail. And yes, I think Ross Taylor was home comfortably. But good fun. Wood enjoyed it.
Jay Grover says, sadly my school was not owned by Eton financiers. All I remember were watching Up Pompeii and the drunk teacher getting excited about the sexual shenanigans of Grumio the cook.
Oh, God.
Pompeii, Frankie Howard.
Oh, now listen.
Don't.
God, it was terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wood's in again, and this is very full, and Taylor plays over it, but It was well outside the line of the off stump, goes through to the keeper. 93 miles an hour delivery, that from Wood. New Zealand's lead is 212, and we have your tweets.
Well, Leia says her favourite Latin joke, unfortunately, only works in German. It's I can't read Latin, so apologies. Citus vi lart in isi tabinet. Changing the spaces around, it turns into looks like Latin, but isn't, in a Cologne accent. Mog's got a tattoo that says, here we go again, Cadiet eos novit enium domus qui sunt eus.
Was that the back four for Juventus in 1965?
Donadoni. Yeah, no idea what that is. I have no idea about that.
Here's Broad, and this is flashed at by Harvey Nichols, who's certainly playing almost as many shots now as Ross Taylor. And Bracey does well behind the stumps. He seems to have calmed himself a little after a frenetic 10 minutes or so when he was... He was palming everything round the post, but he took that one well. Fair play to the lad. He's under pressure with his keeping Lords, with the ball swinging, often swinging when it's gone past the bat, and the pitch now very much up and down.
I know is a phrase spoken by the commander of the Abygdician Crusade prior to the massacre at Bezers on the 22nd July 1209. The translation is, kill them, for the Lord knows that they are his own.
Well, that was a brilliant take by Bracey. Praise where it's due. That was well down the leg side. He had excellent footwork to it, and his gloves were immaculately close together. And he did very well there, Bracey. And he saved a few runs in this over alone. He only had 2 balls. Broad spraying it around a bit.
Know what people mean about Bracey when they say he's both very young and very old at the same time? As you said that, Gary. He looks both like an Edwardian schoolboy, and he's like he's just been conscripted as a 16-year-old to the trenches in the First World War.
He does have a bit of that about him, and for once, a New Zealander just presents a straight defensive bat, and Nichols knocks it back to Broad. Yes, he does have some of that clean-cut look, a 19-year-old officer on the Somme, yes. There's something of that about him. It's a short back and sides. Yes, he has a definite antiquated air about his look. But fair enough, he's really had to dig in here as a keeper, knowing he's on television and on Guerrilla Cricket. Down the track comes Harvey Nichols, and that's a huge attempted swipe over the media centre, but instead it goes over the slip cordon and goes down to the pavilion, and New Zealand are given every impression here of wanting to get to 320 and declare.
That's great, isn't it?
That was just a hoik, wasn't it? It absolutely was.
Yeah, it was. I think I've said this before during this Test match, but Henry Nichols is one of 5 batsmen averaging over 50 over the last 3 years, along with Williamson, Smith, Labuschagne and Kohli.
This is down leg side, and there ain't much chance of for Bracey of that. It will go down as leg buys rather than buys, but I don't think England are bowling very well here. Stuart Broad, since he's got the wicket, appears to have got a little overexcited. This is a wicket where you need to bowl at the top of off stump. You don't need to do too much to get the so-called natural variation, and I think Broad's going for magic deliveries either down leg side or down offside here, when all he really needs to do is put it there or thereabouts, particularly with New Zealand playing like this, because one will go in the air and be caught anyway. The lead is 220 now. New Zealand, I think it's fair to say, are on the charge. Nichols has 5, and he has facing, and it's the last ball of this particular commentary trio, as he punches this, does Nichols square, and they're through for a single. So at the end of the over, New Zealand are 118 for 4. The lead is 221. You're about to have a commentary change. The players are about to have drinks.
They are indeed. Thank you very much. The inimitable, although often imitated voice of Gary Naylor. It's quite funny, isn't it? When people say someone's inimitable, it normally means they get imitated all the time. But there he was, loquacious yet enjoyable in his usual way. I am with. Who am I with? I'm with. I can see Messrs.
Hello from Perth, or good evening from Perth, and good evening to you and Indo too, if you're here.
Well, that was it.
Yes,
I was expecting to see.
Good evening from Singapore.
Is he in disguise? Where? Oh, he's at the top there. That's what fooled me.
Yep.
You shifted
on
positions
top.
on my
Always
screen,
on
Anindo.
top, Tony Bishop.
Well, in so many ways, Anindo. But maybe we won't go into that.
You know,
I'll tell you something I was reading, which is very interesting. Really around this discussion, gentlemen, about, I know it's planning ahead to the Ashes, and we shouldn't be thinking about that. But Joe Root had asked for flatter, less movement pitches, and I did notice someone had looked at the degree of movement on the first 2 days that the bowlers were achieving in this test, and it was 0.58 degrees on days 1 and 2, and compared it to 2018 when India were here in Indo, and it was 1.1 degrees. So that's quite a difference. That's almost half.
Half. Yeah.
I think there is some evidence, perhaps, that whilst I know they haven't committed yet to the Kookaburra ball, I don't think in county cricket. I mean, I noticed also this season, Bess, Moriarty, Matt Parkinson, Amir Virdi, they've all got sixfers. There is a sense that perhaps England are, in a number of ways, gearing up for the longer game and the tougher challenges of Australian pitches. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's a fair call, right? I'll let messages take it after this, but I think it's a fair call from Root from a couple of angles. One, yes, preparing for the Aussie pitches, but also I get the feeling he knows that the Kiwi bowlers and especially the Kiwi bowlers in the first part of the summer are going to be a real handful for the English inexperienced batting lineup, and that might be part of the reason why he's asked for that.
Ooh, that's quite interesting. So for your money, it's more about neutralising the New Zealand threat than it is about preparing for the Australian one. That's interesting. Where do you stand on that thought, Messrs?
I reckon I've heard somewhere on the grapevine that apart from this very important 2-test series, there is a 5-test series against India coming up. I reckon if England is preparing for anything, that's what it needs to be preparing for.
I agree with that, of course.
I think anything done now in relation to the Ashes is pointless. It'll come as a result of what happens against India. That's my judgment. And that's
hold that thought as Mark Wood thunders in and drops one short to Henry Nicholls, who ducks away, lets it go over his shoulder into the gloves of Bracey, who's been a little bit up and down. We're watching a young lady who's very carefully uncorked a bottle of Prosecco without firing.
It's very well done.
Well, I mean, I thought the traditional way of doing it was to try and fire the corks across the pitch, so it was a bit disappointing to do it in such a delicate manner. But there you go. She did it with a degree of style, I have to say.
She's in social distancing with that one.
Well, exactly. You need to hear it pop. Wood turns at the top of his mark. He has a slip in place for Nicholls, who pulls him down to long leg. And he will possibly take one. I think it's who's that station? It's Lawrence, who's been sent down there for probably still living in his head. The awful shot. I can't remember the words Hendo used for it last night. Somebody remind me in his article. He did come up with quite a good analogy.
Oh, he did. I'll find that because it's worth quoting.
Please let us know. It got across the sufficient level of absolute disgust he was obviously feeling about Lawrence's shot yesterday. It's 119 before the lead is 222 for Richie Bano fans everywhere. Wood in, and this one is hiked by Ross Taylor. Where has it gone? It's gone all the way over the wicketkeeper's head and is somewhere. I'd have to look at that again. I think that's gone for 6.
The cameras had no idea where it was.
The cameras had no clue.
The 30 cameras in there have no idea where the ball was.
Yeah, it was a swing towards leg and it ended up going down to third man, but it did go all the way for 6. Wood looks bemused and horrified in equal measure, and it's 6 for Ross Taylor, who moves onto a very lively 29 of exactly a run of ball. 125 for 4. Wood, who's bowling from the pavilion end. In he comes. What's he got this time? A swing and a miss from Taylor through to
Slow
Bracey.
ball.
It was a slower ball. It was quite a clever ball too.
I think they're going for 100 more before lunch.
I would say
That's what it looks
there's not a lot of doubt on that, and Indo that they are. Ross Taylor particularly is very keen to get on with it. That ball was too close to his body, really, for the shot he was attempting. And indeed, he probably acknowledges that because a look of sharp intake of breath from under his helmet and then behind the visor there. Wood will be in again over the wicket to the right-handed Taylor. He swats this again towards mid-wicket. There is a man down there, and it will just be a single. We'll give our friend Henry Nicholls the chance to come on to strike. Ollie Pope fielding down there. Plenty of sun cream lavished on his ginger visage. Although there isn't that much sun today, there's plenty of cloud cover. And I wouldn't say England have necessarily used that to its maximum advantage, although they do have the 2 wickets that have fallen this morning.
The sun's out now, but probably not terribly bright.
Wood again is going the last ball of his 6 over to Nicholls, looking to drive, but Nicholls really just drops to Nicholls' feet. Wood is in very quickly to keep the batsman honest. It's the end of the over, and we will catch up with your social media messages via Messages.
Yes, I'll save Hendo's quote for when we're not so far behind. Jay Grover says, as someone whose comprehensive was opposite a girls' private school, they just saw such things as a challenge. All of us stalwart sons of the soil were pretty intimidated. This is in relation to Latin, I suspect. Mog says, Bracey, just about to get machine gunned at Ypres. Yeah, he's having a fiery time, isn't he? Leah says, Bracey should get a bulldog and trench foot to complete that 19-year-old lieutenant on the Somme then. Ravinair says, we all probably know more Latin than we think. For instance, cubitatis radix malorum est, which I've got no idea what that means, to be honest. Mog says, I should add that the Cadete Eos Inc. is written in Elder Foothark runes, because if nothing else, I'm fucking hardcore. Yes, and bloody hard to understand sometimes, Mog. And El Chopanos says, Bracey is the best English wicketkeeper right now after all the usual suspects. Can't be. Yeah, I tend to agree. He hasn't. He's had a tough time.
We have a change of bowler.
The jingle.
It's going to be this man. Who's in. Just flicked away by Ross Taylor to square leg. He'll take a single. They'll bring Nicholls back onto strike. 127 for 4, 230. That lead has stretched to. New Zealand very much in the box seat at the moment here. Broad finally got himself a wicket after, what was it, the last time? Sometime in Sri Lanka, wasn't it? His last wicket before the one he got this morning. We were talking about how unlucky he'd been. Anderson coming around the wicket to the left-handed Nicholls, who guides this backward a point. There will be a man down there, indeed there is, and it would just be another. I'm not sure they must have taken a single. They did indeed bring Taylor back onto strike.
But I'm glad we're calling him Henry Nicholls again, because for a while Gary was calling him Harvey Nicholls.
Well, yeah, because of the I nearly said supermarket, department store. It's the department store Harvey Nicholls, isn't it? Does have a very nice cafe that I recall on the 2nd or 3rd floor from memory. The days when we used to go out, sit in such places.
They'll probably still be there when you go out.
Well, yes, indeed. Anderson over the wicket to the right-handed Taylor, tucks him up. Huge shout from Anderson. I think it was outside off as well. I'm with you, Jimmy Scares. A little bit of a chit-chat between Anderson and Taylor there. I think Anderson has wandered down. He's looking grumpier than usual, I've got to say.
But I can't believe how calm Anderson's become over the years, right?
I
remember what he used to be like. It was not bad. But pitched outside the off, I think, so he wouldn't have got it in his favour anyway.
Yeah, smacked him on the knee roll. He's back over the wicket to the left-handed Nicholls, who steers him nicely to mid-wicket, and they take a single, rotating the strike. When the boundaries don't come, they're working the ones and twos. Always a good indication of a side that's in get-on-with-it mode. And I would say New Zealand, in the position they're in, that's the right mentality to have right now. We have what probably is lunch. We assume lunch will still be 1. They'll have got that lead of.
Whoa!
Ooh,
That was out.
That was out. We were all saying it wasn't, and it would have been out.
Yeah.
No one reviewed. In comes. But England have, of course, no reviews left, as this one again is worked to mid-wicket, and they take another single. So interesting enough, we all gave that not out. It was probably plumb, and England don't have any reviews because they have burnt them all. And when Jimmy sees that tonight, I wouldn't like to be within 10 miles of him.
Especially with Joe Root taking that awful one for Ollie Robinson.
Exactly. So 131 for 4, 234 the lead.
That wasn't a great piece of umpiring.
Flicked off his hip by Henry Nicholls. Down to mid-wicket it goes. Take another single. Ollie Pope does the fielding. Sunglasses on his head. They look like sort of skiing sunglasses, don't they? It's kind of yellow wraparounds. A man who could do with some runs, Ollie Pope. Certainly he's had them in the county championship this season, but he's needs to get back amongst them at international level.
You could say that about much of the English lineup at the moment.
Yeah, well, it'll be. See, I think if New Zealand can set a target, and they clearly are going to, I think that's the way they're going about things. Once you get Sibley's not in great nick. Obviously, Burns has put runs on. Root has looked assured. But you get past that, you're into sort of slightly shaky territory.
Yeah.
Pope's not in great form. Brace is on his debut test. Lawrence is on a pair and played an absolute stinker of a shot to get out, where Messi's going to give us the Hendo description of what that was exactly like. Mark Wood's going to continue anyway. He's bowling to Nicholls, who angles the bat and steers this away through cover, and will get himself another single. Seemed to be enjoying himself out there. So when you put that middle order of Pope, Bracey, Lawrence into context, if they've got a backs to the wall draw or even a chase, that's no small amount of pressure on a slightly misfiring setup, is it? It would be why I wouldn't write off a result in this game at all just yet, to be frank, although whilst the draw is still the favourite.
I mean, I don't know the statistical predictions, but I would think 60%.
Wood is in, he takes an edge, and away dives Bracey, pouches it comfortably. Taylor's gone for 33. Wood has another wicket. He has his first wicket of this innings. 1 for 27 for him, and the fifth man is down for New Zealand. Bit of a lazy shot, wasn't it, an Indo? Flashing at the bat. Well taken, Bracey.
Exactly, but did you see Wood coming in there? He was bowling from much further from the stumps, and sort of a bit of a Jeff Thompson kind of approach coming in. Although the ball didn't come in much, it just started going out thereafter. But anyway, he was going for a run, so
it was a good line to be bowling. Yeah. In the circumstances. Look, I'm going to skip Latin tweets, partly because they're hard to read and partly because a lot of people won't understand them anyhow.
Yeah.
James Humberston, our friend in Sydney, is tweeting from a parallel universe. He says, prediction, New Zealand declare with 300 lead at lunch. England send in Stokes and Butler to open and knock them off just after tea.
Stokes and Butler. Yep, that's good.
Leah says flatter pitches might come back to bite England when they face the Indian batsmen later this summer. Chopanos says red ball T20 cricket is what I came for. Yes. Leah says, I for one am disappointed to see the upper classes of English society not using sabres to open their bubbly. And Farong says, well, getting interesting now. It looks like the Black Caps are keeping their chances of win alive. Congratulations to my mob for winning the first game at the Sydney Cricket Ground since 2005, which was a bit of a shock in football today.
Well, there you go. That's interesting.
And El Chaponas says Mark Wood wants to get a kicking run out desperately.
In comes
Let the man
Wood.
have it.
To the new man, who is BJ Watling. And BJ Watling deals with that very tidily.
Just watch him coming and bowl with this one. It was very different from the rest of his deliveries.
Yeah.
The kind of weaves in and out.
Like he hardly tries. It's Watling who can score with ease. Yes, it's true. Before he retires, it's Watling who will mesmerize. Yes, it's Watling who, Watling who, Watling who, Watling who. Ooh, ooh.
Here comes Wood. 2 slips in place, and Watling is forward to push it back to Mark Wood, and there's no run. I noticed when Bracey took that catch, he hugged it to his chest like it was the most precious, breakable.
And then he looked at the ball
thing.
thrice to make sure it was still there.
Just to check it had stayed where it should be. Yeah, he did. He's has let a couple of byes through, but they've been quite difficult ones with some slightly erratic England bowling, it must be said. But Wood and Wagner, similar in some ways, aren't they, in terms of you bring them in when you need that extra injection of pace and aggression. And Wood is increasingly the man to play that role for England. And he's done it pretty well, to be fair. He certainly can tip that speed gun well over 90. In he comes again, and it's full at Watling's middle stump. But he guides it away into the offside, and there's no run. 133 for 5, 236 the lead. Watling yet to wattle himself off the mark. And Henry Nicholls, his partner, on 11. So 5 wickets down. Healthy lead for New Zealand. Not healthy enough yet. Quick wickets for England. A little collapso now would see England still feeling that they had an achievable total. In my mind, I really think New Zealand want 300 plus lead. I don't think they'll settle for anything less before they might even consider declaring. In comes Wood. This is guided beautifully through backward point by Watling, and that will go all the way. It was a lovely late cut, and nets in 4 runs.
So New Zealand
Williamson-esque, that wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very nice shot. Another 60 runs? How much did they need for 300?
Right. Yeah, that's about right. It's 60 runs. The lead is now 240, so 60 runs exactly.
60 runs, yeah.
They won't want to bet past lunch, surely. Shockton Paul says, run a ball against Broad and Anderson? Yep, totally shit. Alexander Sutcliffe says, it begs the question, which department store has the most glittering cricket career?
Which who else do we got? I can't. Department stores. I can only think of Nicholls. Which other ones might be in the frame there? New man to bowl. It is the England captain.
His voice is high-pitched and ginger hair like a picked, but massive runs he has hit, so there's that. Introduce yourself.
I don't know about...
Introduce yourself.
Joe Root.
Introduce yourself.
Joe Root, actually.
That was, of course, Albert Selfridge's from the late 1890s. In comes Root, swept by Nicholls. Gets himself a single. They take 1. No, actually, they'll come back for 2 down to long leg. I made that up. Albert Selfridge's didn't exist, and as far as I know, was never a cricketer.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've never heard of anyone called Selfridges.
No. Obviously, Wilfred Debenhams, who made that famous 70 at Old Trafford in 1827.
What about that partnership at Fortnum and Mason?
Oh, they were terrific together. Almost as good as Compton and Edrich. This one is smacked away into the offside, but fielded at cover by Jimmy Anderson.
You did have Marks.
True.
Marks and Spencer, they were a fine.
You had Vic Marks
as well. Vic Marks, true. Well, there must have been a Spencer. I'm sure someone could remember Spencer. This is away to the offside again.
There must have been an English cricketer called Spencer sometime in the last 150 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but yes, there must have been. We can look that up. In comes Root, flicked off his toes by Nicholls, backward of square leg. gets himself an easy single. So losing wickets not really overly bothering. Is that Overton we've got on again? I think it is. So who's off if Overton is on? Did anyone spot why Craig Overton is on? Has Mark Wood gone off for a couple of bales of hay and some water? I don't know. I'm not too sure. We'll have to find out. He's been on for about 5 overs apparently, so it isn't Wood. Thank you. But who's he on for is what we want to know. Is this one is flicked away by Watling? This one down to deep backward square. Another single keeps that scoreboard ticking along. 244 that lead.
Worth mentioning the GPL has another 40 minutes to go, and at last count I think I had 19 entries so far today.
Around the wicket comes Root, guided down to long off where Stuart Broad in his floppy hat does the fielding, and they take another single. Yep, you can go to guerillacricket.com/competitions and you will find all the instructions that you need there to enter the GPL. Guess how many runs are scored in a day? If you get it on the nose with your bet, then you will win the pot, which I think is sitting at around £69-70 at the moment. I'm sure someone will tell me the exact number, but at £1 a bet, or £1 a guess, not a bet, because it's a game of skill. Started the day at 64. If we've had 19 entries, we're up to about £83, and that would be a very good return for your pound spent. So jump on it, guerillacricket.com/competitions. You'll find everything you need there. Well worth doing, and you'll probably find that 19 entries, probably 17 of them are Messi Jez, but there you go. How many have you got in there, Mrs.? Oh,
none yet. I don't know what you've done to convince Jay Grover that you're a druid. He said, I can't see Tony going out to a cafe. Wouldn't a massive flock of birds descend around him, eat his scran, and then devour his fellow diners? Especially if
here comes Jimmy Anderson
was on a ley line.
Hold on, Jimmy Anderson around the wicket. The ball and dropped at the feet of Nichols, who gallops a quick single.
So Tony only has magpies around him.
Well, I have magpies. Russell the bastard crow, of course, who likes to tip the bird feeders off the bird feeding stand. And then, of course, my 2 foxes, who we now apparently call Grubby and Messi, will come in and then to eat all the peanuts that the crow has thrown on the ground to them. They will occasionally have a standoff fight, which is always quite entertaining. The crow will flap his wings and squawk very loudly, and the fox will just wait until he gets out of the way before he drags my bird feeders off and hides them behind the shed. It's all go in the Bishop Garden, let me tell you. Change of ends for Jimmy Anderson. He's now bowling at the pavilion end. So Joe Root probably just brought himself on for that 1 over to facilitate that change for Jimmy. 143 for 5.
He's the world's leading off spinner, so.
Yes. Well, he's got a best of 5 for 8 now, remember?
Exactly.
In comes Jimmy Anderson, and Watling drops the bat on that. It's down to short third man. Well, probably more gully, really. And there's no run. 246 the lead.
I'll squeeze in a lovely message from Damien Clark, who says, good evening from Tasmania, Australia. A very solid reference has been provided by one of your fellow countrymen, Wetlaw, that your commentary and insight is quality. I tend to agree. Love listening. Go Kiwis.
Anderson is in. Oh, and that hurries Watling up, and again he drops the bat on it. That might be leg byes. Either way, they scamper through. Very sharpish. I think he might have got some bat on that. Crawley it was doing the fielding. I've forgotten Crawley in my little analysis of England batting, but he doesn't fill you with too much confidence at the moment either.
You'd already got to the middle order by the time I remembered Crawley, so
yes.
I let that pass.
Well, if he'd have got a big innings in the first innings, we'd have remembered him. So again, he's not exactly. Sibley's been looking somewhat wooden. Burns, as we saw, looked great. Anderson coming around the wicket to the left-handed Nichols, beats the outside edge, and it goes through to Bracey, and there's no run.
You know, Tony, you were talking about Joe Root asking for the flatter pitches.
I was.
And I read somewhere yesterday or today that India's considering playing Siraj in the WTC because they want someone who can move the ball.
Ah, interesting. Well,
it could be an interesting mix.
Tends to be more of a batsman's pitch, and a very big outfield as well down there at the Rose
He's a
Bowl.
big-hearted bowler as well, so that.
He is. This one's away into the offside. No run. Nichols still on strike. None for 30 for Jimmy so far. Did I hear you call it the WTC there? Did you give it a 3-letter acronym?
Well, that's how it trends on Twitter.
Well, okay.
As the WTC.
Oh, it's funny. Well, I know it does. It's just I've never abbreviated it. I've always called it by its full name. That's not to say it's wrong to do so. Forward comes Nichols, and he pushes this to Broad in his floppy hat at mid-on. What's causing
the word condescending? The word condescending springs to mind.
In what way, might I ask?
Allowing us to use abbreviations if we wish.
I've got nothing against abbreviations. All I said personally, I hadn't yet got to a point of familiarity with it where I refer to it as WTC. But that's not to say it's wrong.
El Chopinus very sharply has pointed out that Mark the Horse Wood did a chess horse move there before delivering that ball, and of course it worked.
He did, yeah. 2 and 1, 2 to the side, 1 forward, or the other way around. I can't remember. This one's pushed into the onside off Root. So Root's keeping himself on. So actually, it wasn't just a ruse to get Jimmy to switch ends. Joe Root is going to continue. He's coming around the wicket to the right-handed Watling, who steers him away to mid-wicket and jogs a pretty leisurely single. Will bring our friend Henry Nichols onto strike. This particular commentary trio are all sworn to call him by his proper name. When Gary's back on, he'll be back into department store territory. Around the wicket comes Root, and forward comes the aforementioned Nichols. Pushes it back to the bowler. No run.
On department stores, Neil Franklin says Harvey Nichols, John Lewis, and the House of Angus Fraser.
John Lewis, of course. Angus Fraser, absolutely. What was I thinking? Oh, this is thumped away down the ground by Nichols. Over long off, no chance for Root, and what a fantastic shot that was. 4 runs.
And Tony, by the way, I checked and I cannot find a single Spencer's ever having played for any team, any test team.
Well,
which is very surprising, actually.
Obviously, Vic Martin Root in again. This one, takes a top edge shout from Bracey. No reviews for England. I think it was going to be too high anyway. There is going to be a change at the end of this over. Real treat for us. Former star of Law and Order and snooker commentator Whispering Ed Benson is going to be with us, so we're all agog with interest for that. You might want to turn your volume down though, as Nichols guides this down to third man. Sibley runs after it. He doesn't look elegant when he runs, does he, Sibley? It's the end of the over, and we will affect that change. So adjust your volume dial. Thank you very much, Anindo. Magnificent as usual.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anindo. Anindo doesn't do second sessions, so we'll be saying goodbye to him.
I don't know they exist.
Thank you also to Jez, who will be with us through the latter part of today. I'm Nakul Mpande joining Tony. Tony will be reading your socials, and I'm summarising for Ed Benson. Welcome, Ed.
Good morning, Nakul. How are you?
Good, thank you. We've got a potentially very interesting test match ahead of us.
We certainly have. I was there yesterday at Lord's watching England collapse as per usual, and watching this man bowl. Jimmy Anderson is in now. He left outside the off stump the first ball of his over by Henry Nichols, and there's no run. Yeah, it was a potentially extremely interesting test match. Sort of meandered yesterday, Nakul, after England's little collapse. We saw a little flurry of activity by Rory Burns towards the end of the day, but unfortunately it did feel very much like a day 3 and not a day 4, given that we've lost some play to rain. Jimmy Anderson's coming into bowl again, and that's driven and nicked through the vacant gap where second slip should have been, all the way to the boundary for one of these.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think.
And Watling moves to 11.
I think both the lack of a second slip and the lack of acceleration until the final wicket partnership are because England have been behind in this game. The lead is over 250. They can't afford to have the field as they might. It might not have actually carried to second slip anyway.
No, it's a fair point.
But Burns couldn't attack yesterday until it was basically he had no option but to do so.
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the stats are. I'm sure some of our listeners will enliven us with those as Jimmy Anderson's into Watling again, and that's left outside the off stump and there's no run. But Rory Burns didn't just not attack; he just stayed there. So I mean, he must have scored in the 2 sessions that we watched, which he basically batted through. Up till the fact that he got his 100, he must have scored maybe 25 runs. And I mean, it was interesting watching it because there was all this carnage going on around him, while he just sort of hung there. Which he would say, I'm sure, that's his job. But it certainly meant that the scoreboard can keep ticking over in the way that England would have wanted to put themselves in a dominant position. As Jimmy Anderson is in to Watling, and that's left outside the off stump, and there's no run.
Well, let's see. He scored. He scored his last 41 runs off 35 balls with James Anderson.
Yes. And he hit a 6, which I've never seen him do before.
No, well, he hasn't done it before. That was his first 6 in Test cricket. As we see the extremely handsome and hamstrung Ben Foakes who's stretching out that troublesome hamstring that he somehow managed to tear, slipping in his socks in the Oval dressing room.
As Anderson's into Watling, and that's defended off the back foot. There's no run. He does look extremely handsome, Knackle. You're right. I'm sure he'd rather be standing out where James Bracey's standing right now than being in the corporate boxes, it looks to me, in the grandstand. It's such appalling luck. You get one chance, to replace Joss Buttler, the golden child of English cricket, and then it's not quite clear to me what happened. It seems he slipped while in the dressing room. Is that right?
Yeah, he was padding around the dressing room in his socks and slipped and tore his hamstring.
Anderson's in, and that's driven off the front foot out to a backward point where it'll be fielded. They'll take a single, so Watling will be on strike for the next over. He's on 12. Nichols on 22. It's 156 for 5. Tony.
Hello, Ed.
I'm trying to keep my voice down. I know you have bad hearing.
Pardon? Mog says, no more Latin. Veltifutio e cabalum tum propedimium. And I have no idea what that meant, but he was saying it to Messi Jez.
I do, and it's probably best we don't translate it.
Fine, okay, good idea. In the context of the game, says Lear, that Taylor innings was pretty useful. Okay, only made 33, but he did it at a respectable strike rate of nearly 95. Yes, he did. Mark and Spencer Wood, says Rabinair. So we're finding those cricketers.
Joe Root's coming around the wicket, and that's defended by Watling off the front foot into the leg side. Tried to flick it past the man fielding it short of the wicket, but he didn't, and there's no run. Keep going, Tony.
Al chopping up. Well, it's Root, so he won't have a lot of time.
Back yourself, as that's defended off the front foot. And there's no run. Be confident. If you can't be confident, what can you be, Tony?
James Humberston. We only do Spencer Princesses. Don't know what that means.
Diana.
Oh, of course.
Watling's down the pitch, and he's just punching that down to long on for a single.
I think had Vic Marks played for a particular cricket club in South London, he could have been Marks of Spencer.
Mog suggested in Australia we had a gloriously nuggety middle order batsman, K. Mart.
Root round the wicket, continuing to Nichols, who tries to blast that off the back foot, but it just goes straight to Jimmy Anderson, who's fielding at mid-on. There's no run.
Chopping us. If it's terrible to lose your wicket to Joe Root, which means the batsmen will rein themselves in now, and England won't have to bat again. Root is captaining in 2050 here.
As Nichols defends off the front foot again to Jimmy Anderson, and there's no run.
Oh yeah, the tempt is on from Joe Root bowling to these middle order batters. I was a little bit surprised that de Grandon didn't come in ahead of Watling.
Root bowls, and that's off the inside edge of the bat of Nichols into the onside, where Joe Root will field off his own bowling, and there is no run.
Peter Ward. Sorry,
I think that's the end of the over. I'm sorry, 157 for 5.
No, Peter Ward is straying into fictional department stores. If you include fictional department stores, you could have Grace Brothers. Of course you could. Ground floor perfumery, stationery and leather goods going up. El Chopina says, Kane, get CDG in next, please. What's the point of having him having better hair than Burns if he doesn't get the chance to score more than Burns? Fair
Anyone has better hair than Rory Burns, I think.
Bill Rickier is telling us about Terry Spencer of Leicestershire Pirate Badshaw. Says Arnott's is a department store here in Dublin. Kevin Arnott played 4 tests for Zimbabwe, top scoring with 101 not out.
I think we may have exhausted this.
Still getting them. Department store cricketers are plenty.
Jimmy Anderson, he's going to bowl over the wicket to the right-handing Watling with 2 slips in the gully, and that's left a wide ball outside the off stump, and it goes through to James Bracey, and there is no run.
On Rory Burns, between the fall of Joe Root's wicket and James Anderson coming in, he scored 32 of 128 balls. So it was really just about survival. As we
Yeah,
see
there were almost no aggressive shots from Burns until he was with the number 9. It was a very interesting innings.
Just gonna say, the umbrellas are going up around Lords, and the ground staff are hovering behind the covers.
Anderson's bowling on the off stump, and that's a well-judged single out to the man who's Ollie Pope, I believe, who's run round in the offside to pick up a run. And we've seen some brollies in the crowd from the Kiwi fans. And I have to say, yesterday, it looks like it's raining quite significantly now. I reckon this may well be, if we get it, the last ball.
Yeah, no, interesting enough, the sun's come out beautifully where I am. I think the weather's passed over me and sadly headed to Lords, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we know, Tony, you're a tax exile. You live in the Caymans, don't you? So.
No, I live in Claygate. You must have misheard that, Ed.
I know you don't like the. I don't know you don't like HMRC to know that, but I think our listeners deserve to know. As Anderson is in, that's off the inside edge. Nichols is back to the other side, and they'll run through for a single.
Shocked and appalled says Doom. England has only once chased more than the current lead at Lords. To be fair, it was against New Zealand, 282 in 2004.
Well, I think it's fair to say that there's no chance of England chasing this. The question now is the draw or a slim chance for New Zealand win.
The rain isn't going to help that, really, is
it? No, it's been disappointing.
Sky have just found a man who has been trying to put on his poncho for the last 5 minutes and has now put it on backwards.
He's put it on backwards.
He's getting a round of applause, which is quite interesting for ineptitude.
Jimmy Anderson's going to try and finish his 15th over. He's got 3 balls left. He bowls, and that's off the back foot from Watling, and it's just guided to Gully, and there's no run. There are 2 interesting things, I have to say, from being there yesterday, and not one of them wasn't a member putting his poncho on the wrong way round. The first was that because the members are scattered around the ground, you get members' prices in all the bars. So actually, for the first time ever, I might say, it was relatively cheap by London standards to drink at Lords.
Wow.
Yeah, it was about £4.20 for a pint, which I'm sure to those listeners who live elsewhere sounds absurdly high. But in London,
they're still serving that iffy craft lager, though.
I don't know, couldn't remember. As Anderson bowls, that's cut off the back foot straight to the man fielding at Gully, and there's no run. They were serving that iffy craft lager, Tony. But given COVID prices as well, which means that the average price in a London pub's probably gone up by about £1.
Yeah.
That's cheaper than drinking outside the ground, which was pretty extraordinary for a sports venue.
Yeah, no, it is.
And the second thing is that enormous numbers of New Zealand fans there yesterday. I reckon it was about 50-50. So every time a New Zealand wicket fell, as Anderson is into Watling, and Watling's defending off the front foot, there's no run, it was very hard to tell how the game was going when you were out getting one of said pints at the bars and the members' prices, because the cheers could mean any number of things. And I've never really been in an England crowd which was so 50-50 before, and I wonder if that's just...
It does happen when India are playing, because India tend to make every game a home game, but it is noticeable...
That is true.
Clearly the New Zealand expat or community, or whatever you want to call it, have turned out in numbers for this test match as well. They might. Be very interesting to see the relative concentrations of them for the World Test Championship final. It is now raining quite hard.
We're seeing that. We're seeing a gentleman who's trying to shield himself with his newspaper, and that newspaper is turned to mush.
Hopefully the Daily Mail...
Joe Root's going to continue to bowl until the umpires tell him he can't, and he's bowling round the wickets to Nichols, who reverse sweeps, and that's gone on the bounce to the man at slip.
No.
Well, in fact, not on the bounce. It's gone to Rory Burns, and it's off the top edge, and there has been a wicket, so Henry Nichols is out for 23.
Bottom edge reverse sweep onto pad. Good catch by Rory Burns, recognising that the chance was there, springing and leaping forward at first slip. And Joe Root bowling with a wet ball at Lords. In fact, I wonder if he might review that.
So, Knackle, your correction there turns out to be bollocks.
No, in fact, it came off the glove, or possibly the forearm. I thought he'd bottom edged it onto his pad, but he's walking off, not bothering to review. I suspect that might actually not have hit the glove. Apologies for the incorrect correction, but Henry Nichols has gone for 23 of 36, and we can stop talking about department stores now.
Well, I'm not sure we can, because there's loads more tweets of the...
So let me try and correct Knackle's correction. I think that came flush off the glove, or off the sort of wristband snap of the glove up in the air to Rory Burns, who did take, as Knackle correctly said, a very good catch. And that is 159 for 6. Tony, you said there were more tweets about department stores.
Well,
and
there's a
I,
few.
for one, want to hear them.
Oh, well, I'll tell you Jay Grover first. He says, I live in a post-industrial wasteland, so I vicariously live through Tony's Gaia lifestyle, or Gaia, G-A-I-A lifestyle. Farong sent us a picture of chapels, department stores with cricketers' names. Perhaps I may have misinterpreted something. Malt whiskey can do that. He sent us a picture of chapels. I don't know if that's in Dhaka, where Farong is. Leah says, I can't remember the last time England were captained by a spinning all-rounder, not that I'm against it.
Ray Illingworth?
Well, the new man in is the man with the greatest haircut in world cricket. It's this man.
I turned to look, but I was gone. I cannot see my own reflection now. My body's gone, my face is gone.
And roots into him and he bowls a huge full toss that is just flicked by Colin de Grandhomme down to fine leg for a single.
Colin de Grandhomme's haircut is like one of those skyscrapers that has been going up around the sort of around the city. It's very hard to call it beautiful, but it's undeniably impressive.
And we're not sure we want it there, but it is there. Joe Root over the wickets to BJ Watling, and Watling is flicking that off the front foot into the vacant region forward of square in the offside, and he'll take a single.
Or sort of
You
like
can say that about so many. You can say that about, I don't know, the Swindon roundabout.
Well, or that sky pool thing.
It's
at
ugly,
Nine
but
Elms.
there.
Joe Root bowls a half tracker that de Grandhomme pokes out into the offside to the man fielding at deep point, and there's a single.
Joe Root, we were talking about New Zealand batting like it's a T20. Joe Root was bowling that like it's a T20, just dragging it down and giving de Grandhomme the single.
And it's unusual that Joe Root, who's quite a miserly bowler, that's driven back to him on the bounce for no run, but he's bowled in this over a full toss and a half tracker. You don't see often either of those from him. He's obviously been chatting with Dom Bess.
Well, the ball is wet.
Joe Root bowls, and that's a good line and a good length on the off stump, and that's just driven to the man fielding at mid-on, and there's no run. No, I understand that. It's difficult conditions, it looks, for everyone. We can't really see the rain, but we saw in the previous over that it's quite clearly not ideal playing conditions, Knackle, I think it'd be fair to say.
Matt Searle has given us the odds check as we head into the last half hour before lunch. England 18-1, New Zealand 5-1, draw 1-5 on.
I think draw has to be the favourite here, don't you think, Tony?
I still think it does, yep. Warren says, slightly bewildered, sitting in Western New York, watching England versus New Zealand on what must be the UK TV feed on a South Asian service, only to see an advert for the garden centre round the corner. That is disconcerting.
They know where you live, my friends. They know where you live.
They do. Tony's getting shirty, says Jay Grover, about literary style now. I'm saying now. That's probably an aged tweak, so I can't remember the context.
Anderson's in now, and that's pulled off the back foot by de Grandhomme, forward of mid-on. That's going to be a real tester for the man fielding down there. It's fielded well, in fact, down at cow corner, and they'll get through for 2. That was the end of the previous over. It was 162 for 2. Moved on to 164 for 6.
It looks a little bit brighter now, doesn't it? The rain may have just passed through.
Yes, well, we had a very frustrating day, didn't we, on Friday, where it just sort of rained miserly pretty much all day, and hopefully this will just be a shower that blows through as Anderson is into de Grandhomme. De Grandhomme has a huge heave. He's tried to heave that into the mound stand, and he's done it.
He has done.
No, it's 4, in fact, on the bounce.
My name is Lakhan. My name is Lakhan.
This is more the de Grandhomme we know and love. He scores at nearly 5 runs and over in Test cricket.
That was your Ricky Ponting front foot pull shot, which just bounced inside the rope. And Jimmy Allison sort of grimacing, and perhaps thinking about whether he wanted to keep going on playing international cricket at age 39, but he's going to keep going. And de Grandhomme is, I think, clearly shown us the way New Zealand are going to go. They're going to try and get as many as possible and set England some kind of target, which should make the afternoon interesting viewing at least. As Anderson is into de Grandhomme. De Grandhomme is punching off the back foot. That's gone backward of square, but it's going to be fielded down at the point boundary, and they will get through for 1.
I like the way you call him home, not om.
Do I?
De Grandhomme.
De Grand Home.
De Grand Home, as opposed to De Grand Dome. Very good.
It looks like the stumps are coming out of the ground, Tony. The stumps are coming out of the ground, and it looks like to me they're taking an early lunch because of the rain. It's quite hard to see, but certainly they're getting off pretty sharpish. So it looks like England are going to leave it at 169 for 6, New Zealand, where the lead is, by my reckoning, 272. Is that right?
That is correct, and a rare bit of sensible umpiring, I think, by or not sensible umpiring, that's harsh, but sensible regulation shifting.
Yes.
To take the early lunch now, cover the pitch, allow the shower to pass through, and then hopefully get play uninterrupted for the rest of the day, as long as it doesn't rain again.
And when we come back, BJ Watling will be on 15 and Colin de Grandhomme will be on 9, and we'll be waiting, I think, to see. I doubt they'll declare over lunch. They're probably not quite far enough ahead to be totally comfortable. But when we come out, we'll be hopefully seeing a little bit of a thrash, and
will catch us up on the post-Gary backlog as well.
Post-Gary backlog. Go ahead, Tony.
Jay Grover says, talking about Duncan and Alan Spencer. Eden Ottiganon says, thank God I found you guys. Been sitting here in Berlin watching the game and thinking it would be more interesting listening to German commentary than the boredom that comes from the TV presentation. Well, Eden, welcome. Delighted you're with us. Ed and James Bracey have possibly Jack the Fountain of Youth. Great to hear you back, old boy. I think he's referring to you there, Ed. That's from Jay Grover. Leah says, Kane should declare to unleash his attack on Burns and Sibley for a few overs before lunch. What is he doing? Damien Clark says, that seam bowler that every international team would crave, James Anderson 88, is a pure bowling eye candy. Okay, Leah sent us a picture of, non-slip socks, which he's suggesting as a birthday present for Ben Folkes. Not at all a bad idea. Warren says, talking about Folkes' sock slippage, did I see grippers on the soles of the New Zealand players' socks? Well, perhaps they've learnt the lesson. Bill Riquier, more in Latin, I'll try and read it. Caesar ad sum jam forte Pompey aderat Caesar sic in omnibus Pompey sic in at. Does that mean anything to you, Ed?
No, Knackle. He has a classics education.
I have most of a classics degree. I'm sure I could piece it together if I read it. It's been a while.
Jay Grover thinks I might have caimans in my back garden. They're type of crocodile, aren't they? Cayman crocodiles, yes. No, I don't. Don't think the foxes would like the odd croc popping up out the garden pond. Morg says, a rain break imminent. I bet you wish you had some Latin or Dungeons and Dragons stuff to wibble about now. Well, we are indeed. Nobody tells me that's not Steve Buckner, says El Chopanos. This is the chap actually who does look rather like Steve Buckner, who was putting his poncho on back to front. Spangly Sai says, I'm getting up a basic D&D campaign for people at work, so I'd be up for some nerd wibbling. Okay, well, you can wibble and we'll read it out. The Light Roller says, just as the rain appeared, I noticed the Met Office website said it was less than 5% chance of precipitation. Well, they got that wrong.
Not necessarily. It's just that the 5% happened.
El Chopanus says, newspapers turning to mush is more about the sorry state of journalism than the weather, truth be told. Yeah, true enough. Non-Fred Titmus is referring back to that comment about my gayer lifestyle. They've found my namesake. Yes, the well-known star of a particular genre of entertaining films. Jay Grover says, I got stuck in an Indian crowd at Edgbaston once, got scared by the noise and got rescued by members area by a lovely family who shared their thali tiffin with me, which were nice. Let me see. Nestler's Leah, that network advertising the garden centre in Western New York must be Willow. An American company targeting Indian expats. Yep, they do cover live TV. You're absolutely right. Mog says, Burns is really working a shit-eating grin today. Yep, and he certainly took that diving catch well, so well done to him there. We're almost there. Just hold on a moment. Let me go to YouTube. I'll just do the last one or two. Peter Jones says, Nick Reed, Simon Peter Jones. But okay, that will count. Michael Delaney, hello to you. Ryan Offord says, the short form buffoon turns up with that ridiculous hairstyle, then scores a duck first innings and drops down the order second when fast runs are needed. I think he's talking about de Grand Homme or de Grand Home, depending if you go for Ed's or my pronunciation.
Short form, Colin de Grand Homme averages 37 with the bat and 31 with the ball. I mean, I'll take that as a buffoon.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read 2 or 3 name checks from those of us who are joining us in Cricket Tracker India, because there's so many of you, I really can't read them all out. But at random, I'm going to say thank you to Lalanjar, Deepak Kumar, Majid Wani, Sandeep Gavanag, and Abhishek Thakur. Too many to read out, but we're all very delighted you're all with us. I think I'm up to speed.
Very
well,
good.
Thank you very much, Tony. It's going to be 169 for 6 when we come back with Watling and Grandhomme in. Sorry, Knuckle, I cut you off at the knees there.
No, that's fine. Just saying, they took lunch at if I just
quarter to in my reckoning.
Quarter to, so we adjust everything forward a little bit, so that would take us up to, trying to do maths in my head, which is never going to 25 past for the.
Yes, I think so.
For the resumption, we're going to keep the GPL open until 1 as planned. I don't think it makes very much difference, to be honest. So you've got another 8 minutes for the GPL. There's not going to be any cricket played in that time, so we're all fine. And at the lunch break, so for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be going back to Tony's conversation with a couple of fantastic authors. We're going to go back to the start of that, and it'll be him talking to Ashley Gray, author of Unforgiven, the story of the West Indies, quote-unquote, rebel tourists, and Anindya Dutta, author of every other cricket book in the world. So we'll be back with you in about half an hour. See you then.
Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerrilla Cricket.
Welcome to this Guerrilla Cricket podcast. Now, in March 1706, a man called William Goldwyn published a slender volume of his early verse called Musée Juvenile. Inside was a poem that would lend him a very strange kind of immortality, 95 lines in Latin, which that were titled Incertamen Pile, on match at ball. Why should we care? Well, as far as anyone knows, it is the very first piece of cricket literature. Cricket has a genuine appeal around the world, and today is certainly the topic of conversation for my 2 guests who are joining me from Singapore and Sydney. Most importantly, they are both best-selling writers about the game that we love. And I'm very happy to say that I've been lucky enough to record extensive interviews with both about their work. So today, we will of course discuss their latest books, but we're primarily going to dive into the pain, rewards and sheer hard graft of the writer's craft. Firstly, Anindya Dutta is a banker and now writer and guerrilla cricket commentator who for a while has been keeping the likes of Sourav Ganguly and MS Dhoni off Amazon India's top spot with his latest book, The Greatest Year, the story of India's 1971 tours to England and the West Indies. Anindya, hello, and a very warm welcome.
Hello, Tony. Thank you very much for having me here. Delighted, as always, to be with you.
Delighted to have you. And with him, from Sydney, Ashley Gray. Ashley's a sports writer whose stories have appeared in Wisden, Fox Daily, The Daily Telegraph, The Guardian, and All Out Cricket. Most recently, he's written The Unforgiven, Mercenaries or Missionaries, the untold story of West Indian cricketers who toured apartheid South Africa, which has been nominated for a Wisden Book of the Year prize. So, Ashley, a huge welcome to you as well.
Oh, lovely to be here, Tony, yet again, and looking forward to our chat.
Well, let's then. Shall we start with you, Ashley? Because what we're really going to focus on today is the art of creating stories and writing, and particularly about cricket. Ernest Hemingway once said, "There's no rule of how to write. Sometimes it comes easily and perfectly. Sometimes it's like drilling rock and then blasting it away with charges." But let's start, if we may, with you, Ashley, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a writer about cricket.
Yeah. Well, I was always a cricket fan as a kid. Perhaps what you would now call a cricket tragic. I combed the statistic books and for the right stats of the players that I loved. I used to play as well. I read all the biographies. I used to get Cricketer and Wisden when they'd come out to Australia, 3 months late by a ship. And obviously I'd watch it all on TV as well, so I mean, I don't think I was particularly different to a lot of other boys growing up in Australia, late 70s, early 80s, that kind of period. And it left an indelible mark on me. Those guys that I admired then, like the Lillies and Thompsons and Chappells and Marshes, I still love them now. I mean, they were heroes to me, and they still stand out as different to the men of today in some way or other. They just seem realer. Maybe it was just because I was just a little boy, but even now that they seem like, that they're from a different age, a different epoch. So, it's kind of in my blood. My cricket career was, I was coordinated. I could hit the ball, and occasionally I could do something with the ball bowling. But the way cricket was organised back then, especially in Australia, was that often it was up to dads to coach sides, and dads always had favourites. And if you weren't in with the in crowd, you didn't always get a bat. So sometimes you'd be fielding for like 3 weekends in a row. But I suppose it was character building, standing at, swapping from third man to fine leg for an hour, in the very hot, blazing Australian sun. But, ultimately, in the end, I probably wasn't good enough. But, I loved it, and I loved playing. And I still play with my son out in the backyard, and I love taking him to games and scoring. And, it's just, I think the thing about cricket, as opposed to, say, football or soccer or rugby league, which is also popular here, it's more of a game of the mind, and that appealed to me. It's a dreamer's game to some degree. When you are at fine leg, there's a lot of time thinking. And,
there is. It's a very psychological game. So, but you too often got the Adil Rashid Award under Joe Root for turning up and neither batting nor bowling, by the sounds of it. Let's move on to Anindo. Now, obviously, we kind of know each other a bit now because you've been the seer of some of our cricket commentaries. But pretend we don't know each other, Anindo. Again, it's the same story for you. I remember asking you this before, but from the world of international finance to the world's best spin bowlers, was that a huge journey or a smaller journey than you might think?
But I think it was an unimagined journey, more precisely. I didn't set out to be a banker, I became one. And somehow you can say I didn't set out to be a writer and became one. So it's just at different parts of my life. I was a banker until fairly recently for 26 years, for much of which